Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the AAA Show. We are back after a fairly long hiatus. Some other stuff got in the way, and with hockey kind of slowing down and the draft moved to December, we decided to take a couple break from the show, and we're back now. We're back for bi-weekly here until end of August when the hockey season starts rolling around. But excited for this week's episode. We got Kevin Henry joining us from Western League Hockey Prospects. We'll be talking about his top 10 prospects and, heading into the WHL Draft, as well as we'll touch on some guys that could climb draft boards come December. But with that, I'll bring it on to Kevin. Hey, Kevin, how's it going today?
Oh, good. It's been really good. Summer's been awesome. It's nice to be here. It's kind of nice to get back into the swing of things with hockey and kind of get the ball rolling on the season again and people excited about the draft.
Yeah, definitely. What have you been up to this summer since the end of, there wasn't really much of an end of the season. It kind of stopped early, but I understand that you've been coaching some hockey here this spring/summer.
Yeah, I ran a 2007 team that I entered into the Regina AAA Subaru Spring Classic. And what I did was we had a month and I organized a group of 07s, and I kind of sort of strategically grabbed a bunch of Sask U15 AA players and mixed in with players that I thought would be pushing for AA spots. And I was really lucky. It worked. It went great. We had good practices, lots of positives. We did a team barbecue because as things were slowly opening up, we were allowed to do a little more. So a couple little team building things, and everything, the stars sort of aligned for success, and went to Regina, and we went 6-0, and we won the gold in 2007 division. It was pretty exciting for the boys. The players were pretty happy, and I think probably the parents were even more excited about it because it's what a nice way to start hockey again, right, for them. So
how did the kids overall respond? Being away from live competition for so long, what was kind of the atmosphere like during that whole tournament all the way to the end?
Oh, God, excitement. There is nothing but absolute excitement and nervousness and fear, and it all mixed into one. Anxiety, fear, excitement. If you could put it into one emotion, that's probably what they had. And they responded well. I pushed them hard, and I'm sure the parents would probably have a couple laughs with the way I tied into a couple of them on the bench and trying to get them to do the things I wanted them to do on the ice. But the kids all bought in. There wasn't a single kid that wasn't smiling at the end of that tournament. It was fantastic. And even the feel of the tournament felt good again. Everybody was excited. I don't know. Obviously, like everyone who goes into hockey is competitive, but in that tournament, it had a nice special feel to it because people just seemed really happy to even watch hockey, all the age groups and whatnot. And, and even being at the cooperators, I was sending my daughter to go get me Tim Hortons. Even that was kind of nice, just to have, because the cooperators have the Tim Hortons right in there, and then you get your double, and you're standing, you're trying to get all jacked up again and, get your team ready, pumped up. Oh yeah, no, it was exciting. I'm not going to lie. First live action in 15 months, games since last November, but even those games didn't feel like games at times because you were so limited with the crowds. And even here we had 150 per game, but it sure felt like those games were packed, even having that amount of people. Because everybody was very vocal, the parents were all engaged. Win or lose, everybody was just happy seeing the tournament play.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'm looking forward to this fall to getting back in the rink and seeing some live hockey. And like you said, only 150 people at each game, but it feels a lot like more. You look at the Montreal Canadiens; they only have 3,500, but it feels like a full 21,000 in that arena. So I can only imagine the atmosphere in that barn and what it would be like to get back and some competitive hockey, some meaningful games. I'm sure a tournament, every game means that much more.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good experience, and that final was a great final. Notre Dame, we played Notre Dame, and they had a couple just great players on that team. The one kid, Joby Baummuller, and he's from the Lumsden area, and that kid is going places. He was really good. I was teasing his dad, Bob, who was coaching Notre Dame after, and I said, listen, your sons gave me about 10 new gray hairs after this game trying to figure out how to play against them, because I just thought Joby was just phenomenal out there, and they were just a good team. They were a really good team. We played them in the preliminary round, beat them 6-0, and Joby was hurt, and a couple players, they didn't have their lineup, and then they came back with their A group sort of lineup, and we beat them 2-1 in an overtime shootout, and it was just intense all the way through, and a nice game. It was almost like chess out there, right? It was line matching, trying to get everyone's trying to play their sequences, make sure we're doing our right O-zone entries, D-zone setups. Like, it was a really nice game to watch. I really enjoyed that game. In win or lose, I would have been, I mean, obviously I was happy we won, but even if we would have lost, it's not like we would have lost to a team I would have felt bad losing to on any level. They were a great coach team, really, really nice team to watch.
Being at the first competitive tournament since kind of COVID is somewhat winded down. I don't want to say it's came to an end, but for the most part, were all the games fairly tight, or there's some lopsided games early on?
There was, like, in our division, we had Regina Rage, which had a nice blend of AA players from the Regina area, and they had some Prairie Storm players, and they were competitive. We won 4-1, and that game was tight all the way through. Then we played the Sass Knights, and Sass Knights, I think, was our third game. And Sass Knights, we beat them 13-3. But it was just more a case of they didn't have as many AA players in their lineup. They had some players that are trying to push into AA, and I think they were just a little bit over their head. And normally Sass Knights playing silver, right? So I think they want to test the waters in gold, and good for them. I mean, they worked hard. They were, the team battled hard. They were gritty. They gave us all they could handle, and that game was tight for the first part of the game. And that's what I found with our team. We just pulled away from teams. Then we played Dynamo. We beat them, I think it was 9-1, I believe we beat them. And their goalie was outstanding. This kid was really good. And that kid has skated with me out in Humboldt over the spring and stuff. And he stood on his head. That was a really good game, but that was a case where they didn't have the depth in the lineup. And we just simply kept out skating, out chancing, and just think pucks eventually started going to the net. And then once a couple went in, everything kind of went sideways for them. And then, like I say, we played Notre Dame that first game, and Notre Dame was they just didn't have their A group lineup, and they had, Joby was hurt. I think it was I must say an upper body injury, but it was they just.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, and then in the semifinal, we faced the Epic, who was coached by the U18 Moose Jaw Warriors coach, Trevor Weisgerber. And that game was a absolute war. It was back and forth all the way through. Lots of shenanigans on the ice. Trevor coaches to play a very physical style game. He had big defensemen. I had smaller, quicker forwards and a little more skill up front on my forwards, but it took them everything they had to even get to the front of the net. Trevor likes to run a system where he seems to collapse around the net with size, and it's really hard to work on in that red zone with those kind of players. And that was a great game. We won that game 4-3 in overtime, and that could have went either way. That was a heck of a game. It was really entertaining, that game too. And truthfully, even us coaches and them were getting emotional, and and it was a very intense game. And probably a lot of it was the fact that no one has played hockey in so long that even as coaches you get caught up in the moments, right? It was after the game, him and I had a good little chuckle about it, and and my son Matthew Henry was helping me on the bench, and one of the other coaches too is one of the players too. So we had a good little chat after, and it was a great game to be a part of. That was definitely a character building game for some of these boys. They kind of got baptized trial by fire going into higher levels, and where the intensity where it's going to be at for them, right, moving forward, especially if they want to play U18 AAA, right? So. And then that final was, like I say, and I alluded to before, it was almost like a chess game. It was a lot of line matching, a lot of who's covering Joby, who's this, who's that. Like it was almost like a chess game. It was a really nice game, and it was fast. That definitely that semifinal and final were very fast games, and the goalies played great. My goalie, Brady Holdvig, was phenomenal. He had a 1.25 goals against average and a .949 save percentage. He was lights out the whole tournament. And even my little backup goalie, Connor Millsap, he played the 2 games against a bit of the weaker teams, but the kid was just so good with everybody on the bench and helped with Brady, and just a great teammate. I was really happy Connor was on the team. My goaltending tandem was excellent. it's been a while since I've seen goaltenders work together like that in unison and kind of work together for a team purpose, right? So that part was good. And then my top players, I had this kid, Cade Rudig, on defense from Humboldt, and that's going to be a kid to really watch this year in Sask U15 AA, because Cade is just so nice to watch and how he sets up his plays, and he's a true quarterback from back there, and he knows how to read his lanes. He knows when to go. I had to tell him to go quicker at times because he has a tendency to almost have his head on a swivel too much and maybe be too analytical as he's reading the play. Because nice thing with him is he's moving offensively, but he's looking for his passing outlets all the time, which tends to slow him down a bit at times. But outside of that, if there's a flaw with him, that's a very minimal flaw at best, and he's just trying to play safe. So I mean, he did awesome. And Leo Seitz, I'm going to call him. Oh my God, Leo Seitz. Seitz, he was awesome. He did great. He was the centerman of my first line, and I had Sam Cooper on the outside and Jace McNichol on as his two wingers, and that line produced phenomenally. I was hopeful that they would, and they did. That line combined for over 20 points during the tournament. So I mean, we had the depth. We had some players that I thought that I sort of brought in. I knew they wouldn't get much ice time, but I said this will be a good experience for you guys, and it ended up being a good experience for all of them. I mean, when you win a tournament, it's amazing how the smiles are there. no matter if you're on the third or fourth line, and you're in the first line, right? I tried to make sure I was strategic with how I put them on the ice, and not trying to put players in the wrong situations, because I didn't want to see anyone fail. And I thought if we lose as a team, but I don't want players to feel responsible for the loss. And it was good. It was nice. The parents bought in, players bought in. You can't ask for a better result than that, really.
No, and that seems to be one of the bigger challenges in minor hockey, is having not just the players, but the parents and coaches, everyone as a whole group to buy in. Because if one guy doesn't see eye to eye, it can change things in a hurry. But
absolutely, yeah.
Congratulations. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying that's a delicate $1 million question for every coach, right? Especially at high levels. That's you'll never please everyone, but winning helps please everybody also, right? So that's the key to that. If you're going to play that way, you got to make sure that you're trying to get the most out of that team. And at the end of the day, hopefully those parents will accept that, right?
Yeah, you betcha. Well, congratulations on the win. And before we get into your top 10, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a couple seconds.
Yep.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the AAA Show. As I mentioned earlier, we are back after a long break, but happy to be back. Kevin Henry joining me here today. Here to talk the top 10 WHL prospects heading into the 2021 draft in December. I guess, Kevin, let's start with number 10. We're going to work our way down from 10 to 1. Who do you got at 10 at the moment?
Okay, well, at 10, I have Ole Josephson out of Pacific Coast Academy. I've had a couple good talks with Kelly, a couple good talks with Coach Jason Becker. Ole is really low key. Not many people seem to know about this kid. And even if you look him up on Elite Prospects, if you look, some of the top end players have that 3,000 to 4,000 hit range, where he's only around 1,000. And Ole he's a great all-around player, very offensive, nice shot. He's got quick hands. The kid's the real deal, and everywhere he plays, everybody loves him. Nice kid, very coachable, very respectful with his teammates. He's a true leader in the room. And one of the players that play on the U18 prep team that I represented in the agency, he was coming back there to play in the Rangers here, and he actually watched Ole in practice, and he literally texted me after and said, "You should see this kid." He was pretty pumped. He was pretty excited because he's in grade 12. He's watching this kid just do all these things in practice, and Ole's a special player, and he's an easy kid to cheer for, because I sort of like those kids that have maybe a little less sizzle. They don't have the push other kids have, and he's just a good kid to cheer for. And I really think whoever picks him up in the WHL draft, they're going to get a heck of a player out of him. I sort of see him maybe ending up in Swift Current. I think that would be a good fit for that program there. If they draft him, I think that'd be a good fit for them.
Yeah, with Swift picking, I think it's 6, 7.
Mm-hmm.
They've been known to not necessarily take, let's say, if you were to go by the draft rankings, and they've been known to kind of reach a little bit. Not necessarily 10 would be a big reach for them. You're still getting a great player, but them being a smaller market, it's often getting a player that wants to come there. So that always goes a big ways into building that program.
Yeah, well, if you look at Swift and Brandon, right, the 6, 7, I think is it 3, 4, or 4, 5. Brandon has, I believe.
I think it's 3, 4, but I could be wrong.
3, 4. Yeah, those two teams are going to have very significant drafts, I feel, this year. So as far as that goes, and looking at Ole, he has all the tools of the trade. His skating is elite. He definitely can play at that level. And I project him to definitely be in the WHL as possibly as a 16-year-old for sure.
You betcha. And just moving on to number 9, I guess now. Who you got sitting there?
Yeah, I got Charlie Ellick from Edge Academy, and Charlie is one of those kids that he has really come a long way. The break was actually a good thing for Charlie because Charlie was not there's parts of his games where people question with his physicality and his compete level, and Charlie is definitely, he's got great IQ, he reads his ice, he's good on his passing lanes, and he's growing and he's learning how to use his body. He's around 6'4", 190, this kid, and actually I think he might even be a little bit heavier than that right now. And they had a little weekend, a couple games. There was themselves, OHA and NAX, and Charlie was just from what I hear, he was just phenomenal out there. He was just a beast. A beast was how it was described to me. He was hitting everything that moved, and nobody could get in his net front presence was there. Like nobody could get in front of him. He was using his body appropriately, and sometimes a bit of a break is time enough for these players to even just to be away from the game enough that they mature, that they understand what's important in their games. And for Charlie, using his physicality is a big part of his game because he's got the skill, he's got the IQ. He tends to hesitate a little bit maybe, but I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing or if it's just the way he's reading his plays. And under coaching, it just depends what the coach is telling him to. So the big thing with Charlie that everyone was watching for was, can he physically compete? Can he buy in with that kind of size? And sounds like he's made that move, and I'm excited to see that kid move up because when even with Red Deer, like he produced a fair amount of points back there. So I do think he has a nice offensive side, and then we'll see how he does this year, moving up. So
you mentioned the big frame. In your experience, kind of covering the WHL draft, is that something that you could see a team a little higher, a little closer to the top of the draft class reach on a player like that, given the size that Charlie brings?
I would like to say 50-50 yes and no, but I do think, especially when it comes to defensemen, I still agree that a big defenseman that's skilled can just simply do more, and they can just do more defensively. That's where a lot of my beliefs come from, and I still think speed up front matters, but I also think you need defensemen that are able to keep players out of that net front presence and can still pass a puck on the fly when needed and have the hand speed and the foot speed to be able to do that. And obviously the IQ. And Charlie ticks all those boxes for me. He really does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he falls. Moving on to number 8, who do you got sitting there?
Okay, for 8, I got Jonas Wu out of Winnipeg Warriors. And Jonas is a very, very complete player, high compete level. He quarterbacks very well from the back end. He's really good on the power play, very efficient, distributes his pucks very well. And, and Jonah comes from like his dad, Larry's a really super hockey guy. He got his brother Jet that, has obviously moved on in hockey, and he was a phenomenal defenseman. The only question about Jonah is how much natural talent does he have versus how much coachable talent. And I mean, he's a really good hockey player, but it's hard to say kind of where he'll be. But at number 8, I mean, that's like splitting hairs with some of these other D-men, right? So I think Jonah's going to have a great year, and he can offensively produce. Last year, in 2019, I don't want to use last year's stats because everyone got, a handful of games. And in Jonah's case, I think they literally had maybe 1 or 2 games, and that was it. I feel bad for the Manitoba boys because they probably suffered the most out of everyone right across Western Canada. So I'm hoping Jonah's been on the ice enough, to make sure to keep his skills. I'm sure he has been. That I don't have a doubt in my mind. But 2 years ago, he had 14 goals, 23 assists for 37 points. So he is very offensive, and he can quarterback from back there. I'm just hoping he's maintained that sort of edge to his game with, given the restrictions that Manitoba faced, right? Because I do think that was a really big hurdle for those poor players and families in Manitoba.
You betcha. And you mentioned him being the brother of Jet Wu, kind of just that probably a name that some folks who are familiar with WHL would recognize. Where would you say Jonah stands in comparison to his brother?
I would probably say he's almost in comparison. I like Jet's physicality a bit better, but I mean, like I say, you're with any of these players, it's splitting hairs in some ways, right? Jonah is just a different style of player than Jet, right? Jonah is more the thinking hockey player that quarterbacks back there, and maybe in some ways he has a better IQ than what Jet had, and Jet had a little bit more of a mean streak. I watched Jet play when they it was the Winnipeg Wild when they went to Saskatoon, and he played on it would have been the TELUS Regionals, and I mean Jet was just he was really physical out there, and he was fast, and it's just a different style of game. But they're both great hockey players, really strong hockey players. And then maybe one day maybe they'll have Goon the next generation, and maybe both of them can be on there because their dad Larry was on that first one. That'd be pretty cool.
That's funny. I guess moving on to where we at 7 now.
Yeah.
Who do you got sitting there?
So I got Tristan Doyle of NAX. I got him at 7. And Tristan Doyle, he's a lot. He's a lot like the other D-men I've talked about. He's great IQ, patience in his own lane, definitely elite level skill for Tristan. But the big thing for Tristan is I'd like to see him refine his game a little more, and he's in a really good program for that and great coaching. I know that Tristan's going to have a great year this year. He should. The big thing I'd like to see with Tristan moving into the WHL is learning the systems a bit more and getting away from individual play, because he's got the skill, he's got the patience, he has the IQ, but can he work within a system? And that's sort of one of the, not really questions, but one of the things that is factoring into some of the decisions that people have seen him make on the ice. But nonetheless, Tristan is definitely an elite level D-man. And I know he had a bit of a injury problem, which was good. The break was good for him too, because it helped him get healed up. And so moving forward, I'm curious to see how he does, especially come that October, November range.
You mentioned the injury problem. For kids at that age, is that something that teams take a little more precaution? When you see a player coming off recent injury or a line of injuries, I know them being young, kids can heal fast a lot of the time, but is that something that teams typically watch?
I think so, and I would certainly hope so. I think it should. Obviously, kids' health comes first, right? And I would lean on the fact that I believe that all junior programs would, even though they're in the business to win games and selling tickets based on winning games, running your players into the ground in the long term isn't a good way to build a good recruiting program, because ultimately, whether it's junior A or the WHL, you want that as a springboard for these players to move on from there, and these players' success becomes a program success, right? So it's a symbiotic relationship for a lot of these programs. And if it's the playoffs, it's like anything, right? Everyone's going to play with bumps, bruises. They're going to get banged up. When it comes to major injuries, if you got a broken wrist, broken leg, they're certainly not going to rush that, and obviously concussions can be, they have their protocols, but lots of times concussions can be a lot of gray area for a lot of programs and a lot of teams, not because they're doing anything wrong, but just because will players tell the truth? Sometimes the players just don't want to tell the truth because they don't want to not play. And you can only do what you have to believe the answer. Sometimes players are telling you too, right?
Yeah, I've been guilty of that too. I know in high school, my senior year of football, I got rocked on a play, and I tried everything I could to pretend like I didn't have a concussion, but the coach saw right through that, and he had to do the tough decision of sitting me in my last game. But I'm sure there's lots of stories like that where kids just, their head hurts, but they want to play. And
I mean, they're elite athletes, right? I mean, they have one gear to them, and that's all out. Half these kids, so at times they can be a little bit of a danger to themselves, and not because they mean to. It's just because they want to win or they want to compete that bad, right? That's just part of who their nature, and in a lot of ways, that's what makes them elite, because that's what got them to those levels in the first place.
Well, and furthermore, they're so young and they don't understand the consequences of a long-term effect of playing out these injuries, and they're so caught up in, like you said, they want to win, they want to do the best they can, and they feel like not being on the ice or the field is going to hurt them in the long run. So tough to say. But let's get to number 6 before we go to our next commercial break. Who do you got sitting at 6?
Okay, I got Keith McInnes, and he's a lefty from Yale Hockey Academy. Okay, and when it comes to Keith, truthfully, there's 3 D-men that are very complete. He's one of the 3, in my opinion, in the draft that are very complete. Maybe could be argued he's the most complete D-man in the draft. With him, unlike Doyle, I think Keith needs to work a little more on, not refinement, but he's got to find the offensive side of his game a bit more. He's such a strong D-man. His net front presence is great. His defensive zone capabilities, he understands any system his coach throws him. Great skater. He's physical. He can play a physical game. He's 6 feet, 161. And some of the stats I have on their height and weight could be off, because I'm going by what they were during the year, and obviously kids grow during the year, so he could be actually bigger than that now. He's got a heavy shot. He can work the power play as the high guy. He definitely can. He actually can work it down low too. I've watched video on him. He definitely a phenomenal elite level demon. The big thing with him is being a little more creative, and hopefully as he goes into the WHL, hopefully he can find that extra gear and add offense to his already impressive tool chest, so to speak.
Yeah, and it seems like there's been a lot of the D-men so far on your list. Is this something that maybe a team like Brandon, who's sitting 3-4, might decide, grab a forward of one of them and maybe reach for these guys in the bottom of your top 10 here to fill up the back end?
Well, I believe championships are built through defense, solid goaltending, strong defense, and then you can take even a 85th percentile forward, and they sure seem like that elite level forward. And it's not because they're not a good forward; they just get the opportunities because their defensemen get those pucks, and they're turning those plays on a dime. And defensively, their solid defense is creating more offensive chances. So those forwards seem even that much better. I'm a firm believer in that for sure.
Fair enough. Before we get to your top 5 here, let's go to another quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a second. Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the AAA Show. We have gone 10 through 5 so far on Kevin Henry's top 10 prospects heading into the WHL Draft. Kevin, let's just jump right back into it. Who do you got sitting at number 5?
Yeah, I got Tyson Butchkowski from Saskatoon. I have him at number 5. And he's a left-handed D-man. He might be the best overall D-man in the entire draft, except there's only one dynamic that Tyson needs to – I think that he sort of needs to work on, and that's more – and it sounds ironic, but a little more defensively. I think he needs to work. He needs to understand his systems defensively, especially moving into the junior ranks, which I have no doubt in my mind Tyson will be there as a 16-year-old in the WHL. Tyson is so offensively minded that he's almost a borderline forward. And even looking at his stats over the past 2 years, he had 30 goals, 29 assists for the Saskatoon Stallions 2 years ago. And then, of course, he only played a couple of games. And he had a handful of points last year. But Tyson is so offensively minded. GMs should be licking their chops, looking at this guy, thinking of what he can help especially when it comes to the power play and having a puck moving D-man. He's got a heavy shot. He's a physical player. He's like, and his dad, Paul, his coached him all the way up to with various programs and all that stuff. And I'm probably guessing Tyson is the player that maybe Paul wanted to be, because Paul was such a strong defensive defenseman. And in a lot of ways, like when I watch Tyson play, and I've watched him since they were in Timbits, Tyson has been an elite player right since he was literally 5 years old. Like the kid was just took the puck and he just always one of the best players on the ice, if not the best player on the ice. He can play any style of game. I just would like to see him. I guess not like to see him. I'm hoping as he goes in the WHL and they start on more defensive strategies, it doesn't take too much away from his offensive capabilities. But I'm sure he'll find that balance. And it's all about their learning, right, and their trajectory they're on. And I think Tyson will be like, he's definitely going to be a player to watch, and he should be exciting. I sort of see him going to Brandon actually as one of their players there. I really like his fit in Brandon, and I think that's a kid they could build around on the defensive side of things for sure. Yeah,
and the team like Brandon, who's, they're sitting pretty well as an organization already, even with those two top picks there. A kid's development might go a long ways there, and you don't have to come in and play those top 2 minutes right away. You can sit on the bottom six, or even be a kind of a bubble player here every second day or something off the start, just to kind of take in and learn, and I think it could go a long way for his development.
Absolutely. And he's the real deal. Like, in my opinion, just because I'm a Saskatchewan guy, I really like Tyson's my favorite D-man in the draft. And just because I've had the chance to watch him the most out of everybody else I've seen video on and been able to see in the games over the years.
Fair enough. Going to, I guess, number 4 now. Who do you got sitting there?
Okay, at 4, I got Roger McQueen out of Saskatoon. And I really like the way Roger plays. Roger is a very big kid. He's sitting around 6'2". His weight is a little on the slight side. He's still around that 155, 160 range. I believe he's around that. Very offensive. He's got a heavy shot. What I'd like to see from Roger to elevate him even more and bring him up to that next level. And I believe he'll get there, because he's going to be under, he's going to be under the guidance of Scott Sissons with the Blazers U18 team. So he's in really good hands there. I'd like to see Roger learn to use his body more, because he's such a big body presence out there. And I think if Roger added a little more power forward style to his game and not take away from what he can offensively with that puck, I mean, that's a heck of a complete player. And he's already a very elite level player. They just had a showcase here in Saskatoon, and it was, I had skates and working with my 07 groups. I didn't get a chance to see, but I got a chance to talk to a few different scouts that were there. And Roger just seemed to kind of, when he wanted to play, he just would pick it up and bang, bang, bang. He'd get a goal here, a goal there. Then he'd kind of scale it back. But so even Roger knows what he can do. And that's just a sign of maturity on his end. I really am a big believer in this kid's future. I like his future. And this is my sort of unofficial prediction. I do believe, and this is what I think is going to happen. I like Roger and I like Tyson ending up in Brandon as a pairing together, simply because they have played all the way up right with the Huskies program, right from when they were in Timbits, the first year of spring hockey. And to me, it's like yin and yang. Like those two would be a perfect fit there, and they already got chemistry. And you're getting 2 elite level players. Like Brandon's in a very good spot, I feel, in that draft.
Yeah, and they're part of a big group of this draft class that's going to the Blazers there in Saskatoon. And what do you think that's going to do for a lot of these kids, just kind of in the rankings playing together?
Oh, geez. When it comes to that stuff, I mean, that's a win-win for all those players. Those players are all going to be able to help each other, make each other look better. And I do wonder if that team will need an adjustment period, because they have so many 06s, but I don't know. No one has any advantage this year because no one's played. So it's not like the 04s that are left in U18 AAA or the 05s that are still in U18 AAA are going to have some unfair advantage other than maybe size, or I guess maybe strength, not even size, because a lot of these 06s have really grown a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how that winds up for them. But I do think that's one heck of a dangerous team there, and I still predict they're going to be the team to beat in Saskatchewan. Them and the Patsies, I think, are going to be the top 2, 1 and 2.
Yeah, and that's kind of the team. When I've been talking to people off the show, is kind of they're my team to watch. If you had to pick a team in that league this year to highlight, just purely at the amount of kids that are, it's the talent of the kids that are going to the draft class, and being so young, it's just, whether you're a WHL fan or AAA fan, they're going to be a team that's exciting and good to watch for guys that like to track players through the future. But I guess we're on to number 3 now.
Yeah,
so number sitting there,
I got Jordan Gavin from the CSSHL, and I'm not sure. I think I remember this from before. I know like Jordan played with St. George, and I think he's going to go to Delta this year, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's official yet or not or anything. But Jordan, very offensive player, and he played 6 games. He had 13 goals and 11 assists and 24 points in 6 games. So the key with him is offense. He is a definitely talented forward. He can move a puck. He's strong with his passing. He reads his plays, particularly in the offensive zone, almost at a WHL level already. The big thing with Jordan, it's his shot, the accuracy of his shot when he's on. Almost any part outside of the red zone, from behind down low, and he just seems to find that every open part of the net. And they call some people natural scorers. Well, I think Jordan sort of fits into that mold, and whoever gets Jordan will definitely be utilizing those skills at the WHL level for sure.
Yeah, and one of the few forwards you have in the top 10. Where do you like him the most, and what team that would kind of be the most suited for him?
Oh, geez, because offhand, who was in third in that draft in the dub this year? How would the draft? Because we had Tri-City, Spokane are the top 2, and I'm trying to think offhand who was third in that draft. But I mean, it's going to depend. I'd have to look at that list to see. But honestly, he's going to fit in any system. I'm not unconfident that he can fit in anywhere, especially with his style of play. I mean, he's the kind of player that they'll be able to sell tickets on, just given the fact that he's going to help a team put pucks in net and keep fans excited and win hockey games. Jordan's the real deal. The only downside to him is, if there is a downside, and let's be honest, any of these top 10 players, I'm talking downsides, that's all relative. Like that's most players' upside on their best day. With this group, on their downside, it's just the accuracy of his shot. If there's days where he has, if he has an off day, that kind of thing. So that's really about it with Jordan. I don't see anything. I don't see any real major flaws in the game outside the accuracy of his shot, and that's nitpicking at best with him.
Good to know. Keep an eye on him. I guess we're off to number 2 now, as we near the top of your list. Who do you have sitting at second?
Okay, at second, I have Berkeley Cadden out of Saskatoon, and Berkeley is very, very, he's an elite level player, and arguably him and number 1 could switch back and forth, and I don't think anyone would bat an eye, and vice versa. Berkeley is another kid from Saskatoon who I've watched grow up, and that kid is just every bit is as advertised. Berkeley can score goals, he can set up plays, he's got a phenomenal shot. I know there's been questions of his physicality at times, but Berkeley has learned to play through players being on him and hitting, and Berkeley's always had to play against older players. And this year, with moving to Shattuck, and you have him with some of those top end players in Shattuck, that is going to be one heck of a special team. I'm really curious to see how Berkeley does with Christian Bragnello here. They're down in Minnesota, and kind of see what the outcome of that is. Give him 10, 20 games into that season once he really gets rolling, because I love the way Berkeley plays. He's an excellent skater, smooth on the ice, very coachable, nice young man. There's no lose situation with him. And even if I were to pick out a flaw, I guess you could say Berkeley has more sizzle than steak. And by that, I mean, Berkeley he's the kid that wants to score more rather than be the team player. But that kid flat out wants to win hockey games. His compete level's right off the charts from what I've seen over the years.
Yeah, I remember last year with this being kind of my first year covering AAA, and was watching a contacts game, and was watching him, and he's really standing out to me. I'm like, gosh, I wonder who drafted him. Just kind of out of curiosity. I'm like, oh, he hasn't been drafted yet. So,
yeah, and he's one of the best players in the league at that age, right? It's like, oh my God, yeah, I know. It's pretty impressive when you see some of these kids, and you kind of like, oh my God, because he was literally 14 years old.
Yeah,
like unreal, incredible. I love the way Berkeley plays. Yeah.
So I guess now that brings us to number 1. Who is your top ranked prospect as of now heading into the season?
So as of now, I got Macklin Celebrini at number 1. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Macklin was very lucky with playing for Christian Bragnello and playing with Shattuck this year and having a full season. And then 3 was, in my opinion, was in a lot of ways a full season ahead of a lot of these 06s across Western Canada, just because he got to play games and he got to play a full season. He produced in every way, shape, and form. And if you look at his point total, actually, I think 63% of his points came from assists. Like, his biggest strength, and this is where Macklin, the difference between Macklin and Berkeley is, Macklin is a phenomenal playmaker. He is elite level IQ. He can read a play, read a pattern. He understands what the coach, where he wants him to be on the ice. He makes players better around him, and he makes he'll turn players into scorers just because where he's distributing his pucks to them in front of the net. And plus he can score goals on top of that. And he was fortunate enough to play in a national championship, and they were lucky enough to win that. And he just has all that experience from this year going into the draft. And I think that they're in for a really special year. That between him and Berkeley, I don't know. I think it's a win-win either way, just depending if you want more of a goal scorer, you want more of a team player, and because you can build around both of them in different scenarios. So I don't know if there's even a downside between them. I just love the way Macklin plays. He's phenomenal skater, very, very, very good young man, does great in school. He's humble. He has all the he checks all the tick boxes for what you want in your community to sell tickets on and say, you know what? This is the reason why you want to be a season ticket holder. Let's support these young men. Let's help them pursue their dreams and help our community and promote all that side of it too, right? Both of them are phenomenal, and I think any of these kids are that way. Truthfully, they're you don't get to this level unless you commit to your schooling, your on ice, off ice, your families. It's all in one scenario for all these kids for sure. But particularly those two, I'm a big fan of both of those two, and I don't know. It's splitting hairs even saying 1 and 2 between them.
Yeah, I know personally, just kind of looking at the draft order with Spokane number 1, there's part of me that almost wonders if maybe Berkeley kind of seems like an appealing option there with the Chiefs having a similar offensive talent in Ty Smith recently coming through that program, and just wondering if the parallel, they know how to work with a guy like that, and how it seems like it's too good to be true with that matchup.
Yeah. I thought that too, and it won't surprise me on any level if Berkeley ends up in Spokane. And is it Tri-City that is in number 2, I believe? Yeah. I mean, whether it's Tri-City, whether it's Spokane, either program is getting a heck of a player. They're going to get a phenomenal player that they can certainly build around for sure.
You betcha. Well, that concludes the top 10. We're going to go to a quick commercial break here, and we'll come back with some sleepers, I guess, if you want to call it, some guys that could climb the draft order by December. So we'll be right back in a quick second.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Welcome back to AAA Show with me, your host, Jared Down, and Kevin Henry, joining us to talk top 10 prospects in the WHL draft heading top 10 prospects for the WHL draft coming up here in December. Now let's kind of touch on some guys that are maybe deeper down could be called later on that, might climb come this fall.
Well, one player I really like, and he's just really coming into his own, and I saw his trajectory really moving up, was Ashton Tate out of Prince Albert. Ashton is a very complete player. He's a natural scorer, and he's got a tenacious style to him. I would like to see Ashton keep working on his skating. I think he needs to get a little more polish to his skating, but he is still a very, very good skater, very strong on his feet. He's very fast on the ice, especially north-south. He's able to bust through lanes, and he's able to create opportunities off his speed. So he's definitely got the speed. I just like to see him clean up his skating a bit, but that's nitpicking at its best. And he's got a heck of a shot. And just like some of these other players, like Jordan Gavin, even like Ashton sort of is in that mold where I have him in the second round, and I could see him moving into that first round just because he's a very complete player, but he has high offensive capabilities. And Ashton is going to be definitely one to watch with the Mintos this year up in Prince Albert there for sure.
What are some of the traits that you look at? If you're a WHL team sitting, let's say middle to bottom of the first round, what are some traits that in a player that you look for that you're willing to take a chance on a guy, or what are some traits that might scare you off someone?
Well, it's obvious, right? I think any of the WHL teams, I think definitely, obviously, the skill set has to be there. I mean, as much as we want to give players a chance and an opportunity, a certain skill set has to be there for sure. I mean, and really, when you're talking that second, third, fourth, even fifth round, I mean, there's always players that will step up where you didn't expect them to step up. And when it comes to that, I think there's lots of it. Like, I call it the it factor, and you don't know what it is, but when you see it. And guys who scout I've heard that from a couple conversations from them, and it's just certain things they'll watch them in their game, and they'll watch their explosive speed on a certain play, and they'll watch where they're reading their patterns on the ice, and they're strong on their stick, and simple things like catch and receiving passes. If you can catch and receive a pass at full speed, you are golden to someone, because that is such. It's such a hard thing to do, and to have players to understand that when you're moving as a sequence on the ice and you're having a certain ozone entry, you want players that can move that puck at full speed and understand where they're supposed to be at the ice, and that IQ that follows that. If you can do that, the points in that will follow, and teams will definitely give you a shot for sure. Size factors to a certain degree, but if you're looking at size, if you look at the 04 draft and you take Ty Spencer out of Saskatoon, in his draft year, Ty was an overly big guy. He's like 5'4" to 5'6" range. You look at last year's draft for Luke Corte, another guy from Saskatoon, and he was on the small end around 5'3". So size is only good if the skill set is there. You have to be able to use your size. And I know that was the one question with Ellick, and it sounds like he's sort of overcome that side of it, right? So those would be certain things I'd be looking for. For myself, I like skating. As soon as I see skating, that's the first check mark. Then I watch how they are, watch their body language, watch how they are with their teammate, watch them interact with their coach. And if you're looking at all those things and you get your couple little more tick marks, then it's enough to garner interest, right? And you kind of look at that players on the list, and there's always lots of great talent out there. There really is. Everyone tries to do their homework as best they can in their draft, but at the end of the day, you'll take even a 10th, 12th rounder if they say, okay, well, we'll take that kid. And I always talk about this. I don't know if I've talked about it on your show before, but I'll talk about like Dalen Pikachu. But Dalen Pikachu was one of the last guys pulled in the draft. Well, they got him on the Raider poster here in Prince Albert, selling tickets, because all of a sudden that kid came into his own. He went in the bubble, played his butt off, and did exactly what his coaches asked, and then some. And those are the stories I love hearing about, because those are the guys you want to see leapfrog and see them jump up and have success. And there's all those players, right? So it's kind of what you're looking for. And a lot of scouts look, in some ways, look for players. They look at players that remind them of themselves. Or they can do comparables with players they had success with before, right? So people are always sort of trying to figure things out as they go, right? It really is a bit of a guessing game, but hopefully people's educations and they understand what they're looking for, kind of saves them. And I definitely, there's no doubt in my mind, there's a lot of players out there that could definitely, especially in this 06 draft, you take that number 2 to 7th round, even there'll be a lot of players that can match back and forth, and I don't think too many people would bat an eye at it, right? So that's the for sure thing. Some of the things I would shy away from, obviously, are school. If you do a background check and their schooling their marks aren't there, if they have behavioral issues, for sure, because in a high intense environment, you need people that buy in. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That has to be an all in by every single player, coach, trainer, everybody. When you're selling tickets at $30, $35 a pop, and you want fans to come support your program, you can't have people that are going to disrupt that. They have to all work together. There's no two ways about it. I mean, that's just simple. That's the business side of hockey. It has that demographic of success has to be there to keep the doors open, so to speak, right? So it'd be behavioral issues for me. That would be the red flag, and bad habits on the ice, banging your stick, and guys, you got kids in the rink and some guys F-bombing across the ice, and that sort of thing. That stuff really bothers me. That's definitely one of my absolute no-nos. As soon as I see that stuff, I'm very hesitant on a player after that, truthfully.
Good to know. You mentioned in the 2 to 7 round, this year's draft class to be strong. I know we've talked about it in a previous episode of mine, but do you feel like with the draft being in December this year, this is just going to add to maybe help with the accuracy of the draft and maybe help with the strength of the draft class?
Oh, for sure, right? Because the players get an extra 2 to 3 months. They essentially get an extra half a year of development before the draft, right? So it should, I would think it would. And plus, you're getting those players that are moving up to U18 AAA that'll have those, by that point, they should have, ballparking, 12, 15 games in by that point. And programs will get should get a fairly accurate view of where they're really at when it comes to their capabilities on the ice and where they think their ceilings are at.
Do you think it could be a permanent change if things go well this winter?
Hard to say. I don't think so. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I would like to see the draft maybe move to 15, possibly, just like Ontario does. But I mean, that could be the argument for that, right? If players show better at 15 in AAA, then there really is that argument for it, for sure. And I know in Ontario, they seem to think that's a better way to do it. I'm not saying it's not a better way, or if it is, but if players are more mature, you do get a more accurate view of where their capabilities are at, for sure. There's no doubt about that one.
Okay. Any other sleepers that you want to mention?
Yeah, Zane Saab he's a forward out of OHA Edmonton, and this kid he is definitely not one to sleep on, and I have him down around 28th, I think, in the second round, but it would not shock me if Zane popped in that first round, even as high as even in the top 10, because Zane is a stud. That kid is phenomenal in every aspect of the game, a very elite level skater, highly offensive. He can move a puck, great shot, very coachable. He's one of those ones where I've actually had a couple of guys rib me about not having him higher. So, and I've watched video on him, and I do like him. It just, there's only so much room for so many top end players that, and that's from my list. That's how I see it. Like it, I mean, and listen, if I have him at 28 and he jumps into say 8th or 12th or something like that, I'll be the first guy to message him and say, good job. I'm glad you proved me wrong. Cause even at 28, he's still a great pick, right? It's just, but he's definitely one to keep your eye on, especially for the first part of the year. I think he'll garner a lot of interest for sure in Alberta. For sure he will.
Yeah, you were talking about him before the show, so it's something I'll have to try and keep an eye on when watching some Alberta hockey this spring, and I look forward to it. Who else you got sitting around that might climb?
Well, there's probably, I would say, Cole Pearden out of Saskatchewan here. He's a kid that he certainly could jump up. There's Trey Wilkie that could jump up. I mean, you look at that Blazers group, and there could be another one or two of them certainly that could pop into that other half of the top 10, like in that other part of the later part of the first round. And I don't think anyone would bat an eye at that either. And there's some BC players like Grosjean that could certainly jump up there, and a few others that could certainly pop up. I mean, that first and second round, especially up to about number 30, are definitely very interchangeable, and I don't think too many people would bat an eye at it either way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch to see how these, like you mentioned, the 15-year-olds and all that, and how this, I guess it'll be about 3 months of hockey will play into draft selection, and it'll be interested to see how much your rankings change by the time the actual draft comes around.
Yeah, and well, that's one thing with my rankings, right? If a player is hot and he's definitely stepping up, I will not hesitate to change your ranking at all, because the idea of it is to make sure that these are as closely accurate as possible and within range, because I do talk to a lot of WHL GMs, and I do get a lot of guys checking in and asking for lists and stuff, and I mean, I have to make sure it's at least within range and fairly accurate. Otherwise, they just won't use them at all, right? And the other side of it too is even from the business side, I think most teams only have their scouts probably coming on board probably August range, August, September. They can start paying them again. So they definitely need some help with making sure their accuracy and sending their guys out to watch the right hockey players for sure, right? So because it is a bit of a guessing game for sure, especially for them when they haven't been in rinks very much for a long time, right? So, and most of those guys have been doing it for so long. I mean, they have a good idea of which players they want to see, but it's you definitely want to. Everyone's going to have to shake a bit of rust off for the first month of the season, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and I know you haven't had a whole lot of live hockey since you've kind of taken over the Western Elite hockey prospects, but how often do you think you'll be having to do shuffling this season?
Well, I would say probably every month. I would say I would ballpark every month. People are going to go up and down every month, I would think, and I won't hesitate to do it. I want to make sure kids are definitely getting they're getting what they're getting recognition for the work they're putting in, and if they have a good run, absolutely. I always tell a lot of players, everyone's always one good season or one good month or a couple good games from people starting to, hey, let's start taking a look at this player. Ultimately it's up to these players where they want to end up, and that's the nice part about it, right? It's nice to have the platform to kind of give them a little bit of accolades and let them know, hey, like, people are watching you. Like, you're a good hockey player. Like, let's get you going. Let's get you pushed up to that level. Because I certainly enjoy, when I go to a dub game, I certainly enjoy watching players that I've watched before and seen them reap the benefits of success. It's because when these players get through to that level, it's truly a success, and you want to see them succeed. I mean, so many people always think that scouts and programs and all these things, oh, well, that's only for this player and that player. Well, it's not. They ultimately want to see you succeed, but there's only so many spots on the team. And whether success is even going to camp, or success is making that lineup, or success is being drafted, it's all relative, and it all depends what you want to put into your game. And for these elite level players, they are under the microscope, like above even the players. Sometimes it's maybe not so bad being not the top end player, and you can just enjoy the game. For a lot of these players, it's a lot of high pressure, and they're having to perform with 20 sets of eyes on them, just with scouts from every, that have come to watch them, have driven in, say if it's in Saskatoon and I'm in Saskatchewan, I'm driving down from Prince Albert to watch a game at the Rodham, and I'm trying to figure out things, and even, like, I'm taking my time to watch them. Like, there's a lot of pressure on these players. And so I try to keep it as positive and try to make sure that players are getting the recognition they deserve. So hopefully it encourages them to keep going, because I mean, it's not all glitz and glamour for these players. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, and the programs, it's a lot of hours, and it's not all, drop the puck and loud music and everyone's cheering you on. There's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes, after this or before even those players get to that, right? And a lot of bad coffee and a lot of bad popcorn in those rinks, and a few packages of Tums along the way too. When you're driving home and it's 1 a.m, you're like, oh my god, if I eat more of that theater popcorn at the rink, the old stuff, but I still eat it anyways. I still love the stuff, whatever, right? So
I hope the kids have fun this this fall, and maybe enjoy having the extra eyes on them and make the most of it. It's going to be a season like no other. Probably a few more eyes on them, like we've talked about. And I always in minor hockey enjoyed when scouts are in the barn. So hopefully they just make the most of it and perform to their best, and hopefully they fall where they fall and they're happy at the end.
Oh, I agree. And I think even if I look at what I saw in Regina, if it's anything like that, I mean, we're in for a really good season because the players seem fired up. Everybody seemed like they're ready to go. Families were excited again about hockey, and people are just want to, and plus it's regular life. We haven't been able to do anything like that. And I think we're in for a real nice start of the year this year. And I think the season is going to be great all around. And I think you're going to see some really competitive hockey this year. And, I don't know if people probably won't take things for granted, right? Because, getting forced to stuck at our homes, not doing anything, especially for those Manitoba boys, because they had it the worst out of all of us across Western Canada. I imagine those guys will be like gangbusters running on that ice. I would think, especially for that first part of the season, and just the gratitude I think players will have moving forward will be a nice change for hockey. And I think you'll see a little more collaboration because everyone's trying to help each other, make sure that the right players are getting, information's getting out. I've noticed a lot of collaboration, even with myself, with guys from programs and stuff like that. And, and everyone's a lot easier to talk to, and because no one wants to see anyone fail. Because hockey's a small world. We're not that big of a family, essentially, right? And when one goes down, it hurts. It always hurts someone, right? You don't want to see a program fail or falter, right? So,
yeah, no, for sure. And I'm looking forward to getting back in the barn. But I want to thanks for joining me again on this episode, doing a little preview show. I know we're talking here kind of internally, hoping about getting a bigger show closer to the draft. Maybe we can have you on as a guest on that and really dive into the draft. So,
yep, sounds good. I'd love to do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining, and best of luck the rest of the summer. And maybe we'll have you on even before then. So,
sounds good, Jared. Anytime, I'm always available.
You betcha. All right, thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
That was Kevin Henry of Western Elite Hockey Prospects joining me once again. He's been on one episode before, and you'll probably see him quite a bit more, especially once the season gets back going. So I want to thank you for joining me after this long break between episodes. We're going bi-weekly till the end of August, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. And stay tuned, follow on Twitter and Facebook, and check out some of our other shows while you got a chance. So that'll be all for this week. Thanks for watching.